Okay, made it to podcast number 2.
Oh my
We didn't
God. We haven't broken up yet.
we haven't broken up yet, even though that's what you predicted would happen since I'm Alex Cooper and you're Sophia. But
That took them a
I
while.
mean,
That took them a while.
you're right. You're right.
Took them a while.
It was it definitely it wasn't an overnight thing. But we hit double digits in terms of listeners and followers on all platforms. So, hey,
Wait.
double digits.
You are so funny because I'm looking at us in the cameras and I'm holding my microphone like I'm a recording artist and you're holding it like a show choir. Catholic
I look
show,
so holy.
like Catholic Christmas show vibes when you would have to sing up on the stage.
What would help? How I hold it. Were you ever in Catholic choir growing up?
When I went to private school for 2 years, we would have a Christmas show, and I swear, like if you got like a solo, they would always be like.
That's what I'm giving. Oh my God, I don't want to look like a dork. Fun fact:
What do I look like?
You look like the next Sabrina Carpenter holding that mic like that way. Yeah, I love it.
They need to see my face.
They do. That's so true. I was looking back at photos and I was like, you couldn't see my mouth move the whole time because of how I was holding it. But I don't know how else to hold it. I'll be a little bit more casual. I was Mary in our Christmas performance, Christmas.
That's an honor
thing.
That's an
literally
honor. Did you sing
Virgin Mary? No, I didn't have to sing.
Oh.
I didn't have a single line. I was in the first grade and I was Mary. And it felt really weird because of who Joseph was, and I was like, wait, I'm married and I'm in the first grade. I remember being a child being like, Mom, this is weird. But yeah, what an honor. I was married.
What an honor. Did you have to audition or you were just handed it?
Not at all.
Okay,
no,
Nepo baby.
I went to such Nepo baby. I know.
Okay.
Mary in Catholic school Christmas performance to podcaster pipeline is crazy for real.
It goes crazy. Okay, who's on your lap? Who's joining us
Miss
today?
P. We have a third co-host. This is Penelope. She will hopefully be quiet, but she was not being quiet before we started recording, so I thought she's going to stay in Mom's lap this whole time. And she's got some things to say. She has some things to say about the Brianna Chickenfry, Zach Bryan scandal. It has been a major week in podcasting news. Let me tell you what.
Yep.
I feel like we have a lot to talk about.
We have so much to dissect, and I'm going to tell you right now, I knew you were going to do the BFFs one, and so I tried to cheat a little bit, and I was like, I'm going to listen to it, and then I stopped out of respect, but I found 2 other good ones, so we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
Should we give everybody a teaser for what we're going to talk about? Should we?
Okay.
I think that would be kind of fun to tease the podcast we're going to do. And I think what would be nice is I'm going to start putting the timestamps in the description.
Okay.
Not that anybody should just half-ass listen to us, but I'll do that. We'll try it out and see if we go into triple digit listens with that little update this week.
Oh, easy.
Well, okay, I want to hear, what are the 2 podcasts you chose? What are we talking?
So this week I found Las Culturistas, and it's with Matt Rogers and Bowen Yang. That's his name. Okay, Bowen Yang. And Bowen Yang is from SNL. Now, I did want to bring a hot topic point. I had tried to listen to this podcast before, and I didn't like it. And I didn't know who they were. And so now I think we'll have to dissect if I liked the podcast because Ariana Grande was on it, or if it was maybe a fluke episode, because that happens. There's some times where I listen to a podcast and that week is just not an episode for me that week. So yeah, that's one podcast, and it's with Ariana Grande on it. I'm really excited to talk about that.
Wicked is everywhere.
Oh my God,
I'm so excited.
That's why I did the poll on the Instagram, because I'm like, I want to know, because there's a lot of drama around it too. So
like everything. Like I just feel like that is like the new PR tactic for like the box office is like
yeah,
making drama. Like it happens with every movie, but there was some interesting drama around Wicked. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like Cynthia and like her social media like behavior. I don't know. I kind of live for it. I live for it. But
I know. So
Ariana,
that's one. So the next one is just Trish. I am so excited because I don't think I've ever listened through it fully. I would watch the TikTok highlights. And so I was really excited to watch this one because it's with Holly Madison from Girls Next Door.
Oh my God.
Yes. And I love her so much. And Trisha is with Tana Mongeau, obviously. And so it was a really interesting dynamic.
Wait, so all three of them were on?
All three of them. All three of them.
Oh my God.
And Tana
literally
is a fan. And so I really liked, I'll tell you more like when we go into the actual talking about podcasts, but like,
yeah,
it was kind of endearing to see this side of Tana Mongeau because Tana's so confident and like aware of herself and her status. And she always jokes and she's like, I'm trash and blah, blah, blah. But it was actually really cute to see her be a fan of Holly Madison. She's a huge fan of hers. So it was like, she was asking all the questions that if I were to meet Holly Madison, I would love to ask her. So it's cute.
Totally.
Okay, what about you?
Wait, I'm so excited for those. Okay. So we're gonna do the BFFs podcast, like Brianna Chickenfry. We have to go into the drama of it all because it's just so a part of internet culture right now, and just it was like one of the biggest things that happened this week outside of the literal election. Like it's every media news outlet is talking about the breakup,
and morally there's a lot of stuff going on with it too, and like the people that are involved.
It's like it brings up conversations around like mental health, abuse, but like the influencer of it all and like the public figure of it all, I think that also is an interesting take. And like how, you know, Dave Portnoy, like the way people think of Dave Portnoy is so interesting because he's like become this like also influencer adjacent, like because of Brianna being on BFFs, like he now talks about young Gen Z internet drama
and Taylor Swift
and influencers and Taylor Swift. So he's like a part of that internet, like that niche side of internet culture, but he also like is a CEO of a huge like media company. Like it's just so interesting. So we're definitely gonna get into that. And then I chose It's Me Tinx Office Hours with Sarah Hoover. She is like an author, an it girl to follow on social media. I am not into her content, but after listening to this podcast episode this week, I'm diving in. She has a book coming out in January, and she basically is just like real as fuck talking about motherhood and what like people do not talk about, what people don't prepare you for. And it's an interesting conversation because Tinx is like super open about like, one, how single she is, but two, how like mad she is at the world that like she's 34 and she's having to think about like freezing her eggs, and it's just not fair. So it was just a very interesting conversation. And I just feel like we're going to go on all corners of the internet today. So
I'm so excited.
Maybe before we get started, we need to do like a quick like birthday weekend recap because it was Sam's birthday this week.
26.
My weekend, 26. 26 is a hot girl year.
26.
How do you feel being 26, and how was just like the whole birthday weekend? Please give everybody a little rundown.
Okay, so one thing I did want to talk about is I spent the weekend in Houston with Alex. I have known her since I was 5 years old. We grew up together. Our families are so close. Like I call her parents mom and dad. She calls mine mom and dad, and like our sisters are our sisters. And so
shout out to Alex, friend of the All That to Say podcast. We love her.
So when I blew out my candle, she was like, give us like a word of wisdom. I guess that's something she does for birthdays. And oh my gosh, I've never even thought to do that. And so she was like, let's talk about your year and like how it changes how you're going to go into 26. And so I love that. And I feel like I'm going to keep doing that for every birthday. But I just learned this year, I think I'm not really a confident person in general, but I'm more confident in how I like my philosophy for life is, I guess. And like my friendships, you and I have been through ups and downs of friendships. You and I have been consistently really great friends to each other, and I've learned a lot from you on how to handle friendships. And this year, I felt like I learned the difference between having an adult friendship versus a college friendship, which is so weird because we're 4 or 5 years out of college. And I feel like those 2 years after you graduate, I mean, for me, I was teetering. Like I stuck and clung on to my ideals of what a friend was from college. And that was just someone to hang out with. It didn't really matter for a lot of my friendships if we were really close and we cared very deeply about each other and knew all these things about each other. It was like, who's going out to the frats tonight? Let's go together.
Totally.
And so, anyways, I was talking with Alex and I realized that there is a difference between quantity over quality, obviously. And this year I just felt so at peace with my friendships. Like I was okay with planning my birthday this year. It wasn't oh, I'm going to inconvenience people. It's like one of those things now that I'm older. It's to celebrate me, and I have people that love me and that are in my corner, that it's not obnoxious. It's not, I didn't feel bad about it. Like some years I felt like I was asking too much by just having a dinner, or like, you know, life changes and you change and people change. And so I was really thankful this year because I think no matter where I am in life, no matter where my friends are, I have really good quality people. And so that was just kind of a words of wisdom that I had this year.
I'm obsessed. That's beautiful. And like, I've always been a birthday diva. So like feeling bad about getting people to celebrate you is just not something I personally relate to. But I like, it's so cool that like, I don't know, 26 is like a year that I think it's like you look around in the room and like you finally are like, I handpicked every single one of these people and like there's nobody here that I don't want. Like
exactly.
When we went out to dinner for your birthday, it was like such an intentional, fun evening.
Yes.
And I'm so glad you got to spend it the weekend with Alex, like such a close personal friend.
Can we talk about Donata?
I love it.
Can we talk about Donata?
We can talk Donata. Of course. I mean, if you know, you know. If you live in Austin, Donata, the famous place to get 2 margs. They only allow you to get 2 margaritas. They're house margs because of how strong they are.
So
and
good.
I think we all ended up sneaking in a third somehow.
I didn't know there was a 2 limit. I had 3.
There is a 2 limit. I don't know. Our waiter was just like, "Hey, it's your birthday, I guess. Like you can have a third if you want at your own discretion." But it was so fun.
So fun.
I mean, I don't know. It was always good to get the gang together, and like Donata is the best place to do it.
It was so good. And it was good to have like little snacks, little drinkies, and to catch up with everyone. Like our friend Hannah started a podcast, Fifth Wheel. I did want to give a shout out to that.
I'm so glad you did, because I was like, we need to either give it a shout out or like this next week, I know it's going to be like one of my top ones to like recap.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so good to see her and like to talk about how we wanted to start. I didn't even know that she was going through this process to start one either. And so when it dropped, I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. It was one of those things. It makes sense that she has a Formula One podcast. So Fifth Wheel with Sydney and Hannah. It's on Spotify. It's actually really good. I don't know much about Formula One. I'm not super into it, but I watched their whole podcast and it was really funny. Like they shared memes from Instagram and TikTok, and they talked about there was a Grand Prix or something going on, and like all the drama surrounding that. And I did learn a lot like about how the different tracks and the wheels and the teams that are on it. And so it was fun, and it was just girls yapping. So of course I loved that.
We love girls yapping. Shout out to, what are the odds that we all get together for dinner like the same week that we all like randomly decided to start a podcast?
So funny.
Hannah's one of the funniest girls I know, and I'm excited because F1 is like continuing to be like a huge part of just like everybody loves F1. I don't know anything about it, but Hannah started to get us into it. So shout out to them. Everybody go listen. I don't know, all that to say, I think we dive into it.
Period.
Who wants to start?
It's so hard because all of our podcasts are completely different.
They're so different.
Do we want to start with something kind of like light, or do we want to?
Let's start with the Wicked recap. Let's go with you. Okay. I want to hear about Wicked because I am scrolling all over my socials and like the premiere. Like I saw some people going to the premiere over the last 2 weeks, but last night was like the big premiere. Like all of your favorite influencers were at that premiere last night.
I was confused about that too because there was a few premieres, right?
I think just like throughout the last like couple of months there have been, but last night was like a big one. I mean, it comes out in like 2 weeks, so yeah, it's about game time.
So I honestly, do you know anything about Wicked? Are you a fan of Wicked?
I know what happens in Wicked. I've never seen it, but I only know because like everybody loves it, and so therefore I've had to look up the plot of Wicked, right? Okay. I've seen all the trailers for the new Wicked, but I've never seen like any other renditions of Wicked before. Okay, so I know and adore Kristen Chenoweth. I mean, America's sweetheart. I first knew her from movies and TV show like guest starring. Totally. I was not a big theater kid growing up, and so I only knew her from her iconic voice. Even her regular talking voice is iconic, I feel like. I love her. I just love her. And so I'm going to be honest. I do not know much about Wicked. I listened to the podcast and I zoomed through parts when they started really getting into describing details because I kind of want to be surprised. I mean, oh, yeah. Okay, good call out. Like, yeah. If you want to go into it blind, maybe don't listen to that podcast episode. Yeah. So I zoomed through, like, they would get to it and talk about it really quick. So it was really easy to, like, quickly go through it. But I am so excited for it. Ariana Grande's voice is so beautiful from these previews that I've been hearing. And is it Jonathan Bailey is the guy in the yes, I hear that name. I don't know their character names. And so he sings Dancing Through Life, and his voice is so good. He's from Bridgerton and other things, but I didn't know he had a voice on him. It's so good. So anyways, in the podcast, Bowen Yang was talking about how Ariana Grande actually reached out to SNL to make sure he got to go on the movie because you had to take a break from SNL to be able to go film it. And so wait, Bowen Yang is in Wicked? Yes. News to me. Yes. Oh, I was gonna pull up my phone and be like, here, like, they talk about, like, it was really cute because they talked about how they started out kind of being obsessed with each other's work. I mean, Ariana Grande is a huge star. Eternal Sunshine, she was talking about it, and they ended up having a lot in common, and they love like horror movies, and they would watch it together on Wicked, like when they had breaks and things like that. And so that was really cute to hear about, like, their evolution to where they are now as friends. Yeah. And it was really funny because she was talking about this set is an outdoor set. And I remember the controversy of the paparazzi was taking pictures of them filming the movie. And Ariana Grande said that they, at first, she and the actors were stressed. They were like, this is our secret project. This is a big deal. But it was the director that was like, who cares? We're going to film it. It's outdoors. There's nothing we can do about it. Give it a show. And so they even mentioned someone hang glided over the set to get footage, which I think is actually insane. There was like a drone, like, that is insane. And I think it starts a conversation about paparazzi. That's always been a conversation, but I'm surprised the director handled it so well, because if I had such a high budget film,
I would
Yeah.
be so upset that this stuff was getting released, personally.
I know.
I would be.
Yeah. The paparazzi, it's a very interesting conversation that I feel like is starting to happen a lot more, especially after this last year with like Britney Spears, right? Like I think when her book and her like really coming back into the zeitgeist like was a whole conversation. But for like a huge corporation to not have things more locked down, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I personally haven't seen, like, I saw a ton of footage like on set, but most of the footage I saw I feel like is what they wanted to release.
Yes.
And is of Ariana and like Cynthia like singing live. Like I didn't realize
So
like
beautiful.
the art behind and like them live singing, just like
So
I guess that
perfect. It's
is
so perfect.
rarely done, if ever. I can't wait. The vocals of these two women, they're such stars. I can't wait to see the movie.
And Ariana Grande said that she got fully like immersed into the character, and she was saying that sometimes after they would film a scene, it would hurt her heart because she knows what's going to happen next to the characters. And it was so, I'm actually like, I feel like she's an old friend. I'm so happy for her that she got to play this role, because it seems so healing to her to be able to portray something that means so much to her.
I have always really loved Ariana Grande. I feel like she has needed a little bit of crisis PR with the whole SpongeBob boyfriend controversy. I think it's so interesting because, you know, people like say the timelines are incredibly blurred between the ending of his marriage into dating Ariana, and it all happened within the timeline of them filming Wicked. But Ari, she like is holding her grounds that like, no, there was no timeline blurred. And it's like, I don't know, do you trust your faves when they say that, or do you say, I don't know, Ari, like past has proven, but it's also like we don't know these people. What's your take on her and SpongeBob and like their relationship?
So I did do a deep dive. Here's the problem with social media. It's a good and a bad thing. Is there's a lot of different sources out there, like you said, and we can hear from directly from the source, but that doesn't mean it's the truth too, right? Totally. If she's standing her ground. Unfortunately, I have heard that she herself has been the other woman in a lot of her relationships. Like Jay Brooks, when she dated him, it started off with cheating rumors, like she was the other woman. And then even, she's dated, which is okay, but she's dated a couple of people, and
we've seen her through like a lot of relationships.
We've seen her through relationships, and I saw like a deep dive, and it said that most of her relationships had rumors about the timelines. And so I think that it's hard because I don't know if we'll ever get the truth. And the girlfriends and ex-girlfriends always come out of the woodworks and say not so nice things about her, and it's been a common theme. And so I think it's hard to say, but she is also so funny and so human. Like listening to the interview, I felt like I was there, and Josh was in the car. I was listening to it on the way back from Houston, and he was like, this is actually like a really interesting podcast because they make you feel like you're there. Like all the questions that they're asking her and all the things that they're doing, it makes it seem like it's questions that you would ask. It was very natural, very flowing. It did at the end, like it was a long podcast. At the end, I was just kind of like, I'm kind of moving on from this. But I did like it. I am curious, maybe next week if they release one, I will listen to it to just kind of compare, because like I said, and it's nothing against them, but I went into their podcast not knowing who they were. And this time I knew who they were, and I wonder if I have kind of a bias of like, now I know who they are, they're funny, I'm going to enjoy this, because I don't know. I tried to listen to their other one. They also have a lot of ads in their podcast and get that money, but man, it was a lot of ads that you had to flip through. And so
interesting.
I liked it. I liked the content, but I don't know about the format. I don't know. I don't know.
I like Bowen Yang is like funny to me. Hot take, maybe not so much. Like I think SNL is truly like the worst comedy out there. Like I have never thought SNL is funny. Like the whole what's the thing everybody is like loving recently? The whole
bingo. That's so funny. Are you talking about that? I love it.
Like, it's like a little catchy, but I like, how is that comedy? Like, have you ever like been on like brain rot side of TikTok? Like,
yes,
that's comedy to me. Okay,
yes.
Like, I don't know if my comedy is just like so internet culture skewed, but like I watch SNL and I'm just like I've never thought it was like that funny. But I think Bowen Yang is like someone talented on SNL, so
funny.
I'm willing to give it a listen.
And they talked about Ariana Grande. Sorry, but they talked about SNL. Now that you mention it, that was also in the podcast. And Ariana Grande helped with the bits. She was like bouncing off ideas and was helping with the comedy behind it, which I really liked hearing. And he even talked about, I always get more respect when you hear about the cast and crew being respected. And he was saying how Ariana Grande was very respectful, very kind to all the staff, and they were very welcoming to her. So like she would love to come back. And I wish that for her. And I know in the podcast she dropped the news that music is not going to be her focus for a while.
That was a big piece of news that I saw out of the podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
I think the direction of Ari acting in the direction of her doing more like musical theater makes perfect sense.
It makes
honestly
sense.
Like
it makes sense.
We have gotten so many amazing albums and songs out of her. Like I'm ready to see Wicked. I feel like it'll prove such a point of like this is the next like iteration and phase of Ari that the world needs to see.
I think this is exactly who she is. I think I've seen a lot of people say that she doesn't know who she is. I think this era of Wicked is her. I think this is exactly the person that she is a musical theater fan. And I think she's gonna glow, and I'm really happy for her. Especially she's been through so much.
Yeah, she really has been. Like when people think about like, you know, the like her relationship with
I was thinking Manchester.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Mac Miller, Manchester. Yeah, she's
all the online hate she gets. I feel like she's a very hated celebrity.
I would say so too. And I wonder where that comes from. If that comes from like the Nickelodeon of it all into like being child star into adulthood. If it comes from like the fact that she has been in a lot of relationships. So that means like the guy she's dating, their fans then like attack her. Great segue into Brianna and Zach Bryan, because that happens all too much to females is like the hate train of these females when they get into a relationship with a male public figure. So 30-second recap overview. If you just have absolutely no idea. Okay. Brianna Chickenfry is a member of Barstool, employee of Barstool. She has her own podcast with her best friend Grace, who been friends. Best friend Grace. The evolution, right? We're starting from the beginning. Okay. One of her best friends.
Maybe
Bree starts dating Zach Bryan. Zach Bryan is very famous country artist. So Brianna had a career before Zach, right? Both people in the public eye. We've seen both of them through many relationships and many breakups. Brianna is also one of the co-hosts of the BFFs podcast, a Barstool podcast with Dave Portnoy, Josh Richards, and then Brianna Chickenfry. Basically, this last week, they did a tell-all. It was a tell-all of the fact that the internet has been scheming for a long time, that Brianna and Zach Bryan are having relationship issues, and Brianna came onto the podcast this week basically with the biggest headline around all of this is that Zach Bryan's team offered Brianna $12 million to be silent, and she did not take it. And that's huge. So, okay. I've got a couple of points, and then I want to hear your take on it.
I'm ready.
I think, one, I have been following Brianna. Like, I remember when she first became, like, on Barstool. Like, I had been following her before she was even a member of the Barstool team. Like, I have seen an entire iteration of her. I really have always adored Brianna. I think she's really funny. and I adore Grace, her best friend, so much. They talked about it on the pod. Yes, there's been some damage to their relationship. They will always be like extremely close friends though.
Okay.
And I see that like they will 100% make amends, but Brianna was in an emotionally abusive relationship with him, and that's going to have some major effects on friendships. And although it wasn't verbatim disclosed, I think we can all put together context clues of one of the biggest downfalls, which was Brianna's birthday, the bonfire night, where Grace was there, and this was the night that Zach basically had like a breakdown, yelling at her friends, and it forced just like basically like a huge wedge, and like isolated Brianna even more from like her friends, her family.
No.
And that's what like narcissists and emotional abusers do, right? They like try to isolate you from people. So I think I don't know, the whole thing about Brianna not taking the $12 million, right? Like that's what I want to talk about. Brianna was someone before him, and she's going to be someone after him. And those were her words in the podcast of like why she essentially chose not to take the money, is because she's like, hey, like I had a career before you and I'm going to have it after you. One, I don't need the 12 million, but two, I'll buy a house someday knowing that I bought this house with like your 12 million. And like, she just didn't want that. I related it so much to Ariana Maddox, right? In Scandival of like, think of how much money Ariana made after her breakup.
Insane.
I see the same thing for Brianna. Like, based off of the brand deals that are going to come in for her, based off of what Dave, like, I assume during, like, contract negotiations, like, she's providing even more, like, brandness and nameness and likeness to the like, name of Barstool. Like, she's easily going to make more than 12 million, and she got to spill the beans. Would you take the 12 million or not?
No, because I did hear this portion of the podcast, and the fact that she would have to talk either nothing at all or only kind things about him for 3 years before she could get the 12. That's what I heard, right? Does that sound about right? Is she'd either only have to talk nice about him or not at all?
I think it was like a pretty strict NDA of just like
not at all,
not discussing it. Yeah.
I think that's kind of difficult, and I don't think that would be true to yourself, especially knowing what could come. And I feel like Dave would take care of Brianna. If anything, I don't think she needs someone to take care of her, but like, let's say if something does, I feel like he gets a lot of hate. Dave does. And there's a whole nother lore with that, but you can't say that he's not loyal to his team. Would you say that's accurate?
Dave, I would say that's accurate. Like, he is, I don't know, he like definitely has taken Brianna, I feel like, under his wing, like behind the scenes. Brianna like confided in him about you know, when like this all was going down, just to be like, yo, do I take this money or not? She confided in both Josh and Dave about it.
Yeah.
And so one, to have like a relationship like that with like two of your like, you know, coworkers, I think that speaks volumes. But also Josh Richards, did you see he's in Austin this weekend? He posted like, yo, I'm at like Unbelievable on West 6. He was here for the game. So we missed Josh being in Austin. I thought that was so funny.
So random.
I mean, UT, you know, like everybody wants to go and go to a UT game. But the other point I wanted to bring up was about, like, do you remember when Zach Bryan tweeted those bad things about Taylor Swift?
Yes. Yeah.
There's two really funny stories out of the podcast that I like took away. They didn't talk about the Taylor Swift of it all, but like, you know, the diss track, like, you know, calling him like the smallest man, and just like the whole lore behind it. Like, Brianna reposted a TikTok today, and it was basically like a thread of just all these girls jumping on being like, Brianna, I made this playlist for you, all Taylor Swift songs. And the reason why I don't think Zach Bryan liked Taylor Swift is because, like, think of every single song she writes. It's about fuckers like him. Like, truly, go listen to this song, like The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived. And then go listen to like Dear John. It's like literally all about Zach Bryan, like based on what we now know about him.
Yeah.
I thought it was crazy that Brianna was just like la da dee singing a Morgan Wallen song, and they got into a week-long fight about that. Like, this man is so insecure. It is, there is nothing scarier than an insecure man.
A lot of his songs, or I shouldn't say a lot, but there was 2 songs that are Taylor Swift songs that sound very similar to his song.
I saw that.
Which
that's crazy.
Very interesting, because one of the songs was Shoulda Said No. It sounds like Shoulda Said No. And I was like, oh my, like if you would have played that without the context of knowing it's Zach Bryan, I would have thought it was the beginning of Shoulda Said No.
So if it like actually is like copyright, like one thing about Taylor is
she's
like,
gonna come for him.
She's going after you. But
yeah.
I'm like, is she gonna go after him? Because like that's been out for forever. Like I feel like her team would have like already been all over that if it is actually like if there is some like truth to it. Like it does sound super similar.
Though? Was that a known song on his disc? Because I don't know. I'm not a big
one of Zach Bryan's songs.
Yeah,
I know.
Was that a known song? Because I feel like
I don't listen to Zach Bryan except like his most top popular songs.
I don't either.
Here's the thing that I'm really worried about though is he's one of the headliners at Stagecoach, and I'm going to Stagecoach, and I'm like, I wonder if this is going to affect his career at all. Like there is one thing to cancel culture and canceling people who the internet wants to attack, but there's another thing that like this guy clearly has abusive tendencies. People villainize Brianna for being like, you knew this going into this relationship. All of his exes, we know what's happened with his other exes. Like you can find all of this on the internet. But you know, I don't really stand behind cancel culture, but like Zach Bryan, I truly wish nothing like well for this man right now. Like he clearly isolated Brianna. He clearly is so beyond insecure. And like I don't wish good things for this man in this current moment.
You are going to hate me. I am on a TikTok side that is anti Brianna Chickenfry and Zach Bryan.
There's so much anti Brianna Chickenfry, and I need it to stop.
There's both.
Oh my God.
So, okay. Here is what I will say about it. I think that no one should go through this. And I could have swore, and you can fact check me. She said, I did this to myself because I kept going back or something, right? I want to say, did you hear?
She did.
She said that, right? That is a devastating thing for a woman to ever have to feel, is that they put this on them. They should never have to feel that way. And so that breaks my heart, and I will stand by that. Like that's such a harsh thing to say to yourself and to internalize that.
Abuse is never your fault for sure.
And so here's the thing. I am on hate TikTok for Brianna Chickenfry. I don't know why. I don't know how I got on this. I think my For You page is so random now that like I started getting Dave Portnoy because of Taylor Swift, and I love Taylor Swift, and so now my whole page is them, right? But I've been seeing the timelines and going back to the Ethan Slater and Ariana Grande stuff. I did see that the timeline is messy for Brianna and Zach when they got together. You disagree?
Nope.
Okay.
It is 100%. And they talk about that in the podcast. It's like, okay. I've been
one you just listened to, they talk about it. They finally address it.
The tell all.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Brianna has she has addressed it so many times, and like the internet, they're always gonna like villainize it. Brianna went through a breakup, and it was like a public breakup, and then shortly after went to a Zach Bryan show, and that's the relationship didn't like start right then and there, but it started like shortly after. Like he invited her to, and then fuck, she's single, hell yeah, go off.
Okay.
No, it's like definitely like a side of the internet, and like people are gonna like always speculate, but I think it's one of those things that so many of his fans like hated on her because they were probably like jealous of like Brianna being just like an internet girl and like this huge country artist, like, you know, falling in love with her. But I hope this like stops people in their tracks a little bit of like, they posted the most glamorizing things about their relationship on the internet. Like so many love letters, so many posts, so many things we saw of them at the Golden Globes together and how in love they were with each other.
I mean, I even saw their house, and I don't even follow any of them.
And to now know what was happening behind closed doors, like I hope this stops everybody in their tracks a little bit to be like, hey, one, this validates the internet is not real. Like literally remember that when you're idolizing people and being like, why don't I have that version of her life, or like I feel jealous of that. And then like two, like, yeah, again, we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. Like
that's true.
Even if the timeline was skewed, now we know she was in like an emotional, like abusive relationship. And I just hope everybody who's on like hate train of Brianna takes a step back and like are the girls that I feel like those girls constantly preach that they want to be. And like two things can be true. Maybe the timelines were blurred, but like she was also in like a really shitty situation. And yeah, I don't know. It was tea.
I agree. I don't know if I will ever feel any feelings toward Brianna Chickenfry, to be honest. She, for me, is not a social media person I follow or have ever followed or probably ever will. I don't really understand her personality, if I'm being honest. I have seen clips of her and it's just not up my alley, which is fine. But yeah, I agree. Like everything can exist. It's like the human nature of it all. Like I'm not a perfect person by any means, and I've done things in the past. It happens, but I don't wish anything bad for her. I mean, that's just horrible. From what I've heard, and I haven't even listened to the podcast, it just sounds like a horrible situation.
I'm so glad we finally got a tell-all about it, though, because I feel like the internet has been speculating about them for a very long time. And I'm really happy they did a tell-all, and I hope it is freeing for Brianna. And I think we're going to see a whole other side of Brianna. Like, this is definitely going to, like, take her into, like, a next level, like phase 2. I just feel like she lost herself. And I'm excited. I'm really excited to see what comes next for her. I am wishing her the absolute best and wishing ZB the absolute worst day ever.
Well, okay. I feel like this is a good segue into Just Trish.
Yeah. I want to hear it. Oh my God, Just Trish.
All of that
girl.
To say, we're going to move in Just Trish because I feel like the women that were on the podcast, I mean, oh my gosh, that is like the theme for this week is being with
a week of
men.
Yeah, a week of women on podcasts being with horrible men. Yeah.
I mean, that is literally
just another day.
That is literally the theme of it all. I mean, so to start off with, Holly Madison, I did not know any of this until this past summer because I grew up very sheltered. I wasn't allowed to watch SpongeBob. I wasn't allowed to watch certain Disney shows or movie, not Disney, sorry. Disney was like pretty open in my household, but Nickelodeon, I had restrictions. Zoe 101, totally. I've never seen it, was never allowed to watch it. My mom did not like what was her name? Spears. I forgot
Jamie
her name.
Lynn.
Jamie Lynn. My mom did not like her. And I wasn't allowed to watch it. To the point at sleepovers, my friends would be like, let's watch it. Like your mom won't know. And I'd be like, no, I don't want to watch any of this. Like, and so
I didn't know that.
Anyways, I was very sheltered from the Playboy rise and fall and all
the girl next door show, everything. Sam, I was the polar opposite. I was obsessed. With anything Playboy growing up. Oh my God. I loved. Oh yeah, it was everything to me. But it makes sense you were sheltered by it. Like I had no business watching that at the age in which I was watching it.
I was so sheltered. And so then I saw a TikTok because of the rise of 2000s fashion and just 2000s culture nowadays is so prevalent right now. And so I
Mm-hmm.
saw a TikTok and it was the Girls Next Door intro. And everyone was like, this is the most iconic intro. Like, no one can stop this. And I was like, I need to watch this. Like, it just looked so funny. And like Hugh Hefner, I knew who that was. But you know what the funny thing is? I didn't know who he was until freshman year of Halloween. Someone was dressed up as at a frat party as Hugh Hefner, and the girl was a Playboy bunny. And I asked my friend, I was like, "What is that?" I had no
That
idea.
is crazy,
I had-
Sam.
I mean, I wasn't like that sheltered where I'd never seen him before, but I
Yeah.
didn't know the iconic robe and like I I had no idea. I mean, maybe someone can fact check me because I'm also delusional and forget things, but I swear I did not know the history of everything. And so I started watching Girls Next Door this summer. I fell in love with these very intelligent and strong women. The way
Yeah.
that they portrayed the show, I could see why women wanted to be a Playboy bunny. You see their life on TV and it looks so great and so beautiful, and these women are so in love with Hugh Hefner. Have you seen the show?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's so fascinating. And Holly, I watched her do like a tell all after the fact, and this relates to podcast because she talks about it a little bit, and she just talks about how she really was in love with him. She really did have feelings and she wanted to get married to him. And so anyways, on the podcast, Tana Mojo is a huge fan of Holly Madison, and so she was having her talk through her time at the mansion and talk through how she felt. Holly owned up that she was very standoffish when she was meeting Playboy bunnies and things like that. And I feel like when I watched the tell all, she kind of mentioned that as well. And she said it was due to anxiety and also just how horrible the relationship with Hugh was. She was on a short leash without a better saying than that. But she was saying how they were pitted against each other. These women wanted the cover and they would do anything to get it. And so it was just the culture in there, and she's owned up to it. And I really like that it shows that she is aware that that is her past. But they talk about her dating history and to go from Hugh Hefner to Chris Angel and then to Pascal, the EDC mogul, the huge EDM person. And she just seems like such a sweet girl. She's a quirky, weird girl. And they showed it a little bit on the show. You learn a lot about her in the podcast. And it's really cute because Trisha, I feel like, is so empowering to women. I love Trisha. I was really happy this is the first time I'd watched it all the way through. And Tana talking about her old days of getting banned from certain places in Vegas, and Holly being like the queen of Vegas and knowing ways to kind of get around it. It was just one of those podcasts. It was like insightful and girly. It was like a good little break from the outside world. It was really cute, but it was really fun to hear Tana get so excited and talk to her in the way of like asking the questions that the fans want to ask, but that haven't been answered yet. So I really liked it. All of that to say, it was just a quick little recap. It was only an hour and 30 minutes long, so it was a short podcast, but they were just yapping, just girls.
When you think of like all corners of the internet, so Trisha being like, when I think of Trisha, I think of like YouTube, like OG YouTuber. When I think of Tana, like for sure she's an OG YouTuber too, but you know, has made her way more into more of either podcasting or TikTok. And then when you think of like Holly, you think of like the OG, the MTV, the E, the Girl Next Door, like and so for all of them to come together, like they're honestly the same person, just in like different corners of
different
media,
stages of life.
And I think that's such like a lighthearted, fun like episode to listen to if you were obsessed with like the Girl Next Door growing up. And also there is some incredible like lore to get behind of just like the abuse that went on in the mansion and all of the drama between all of like the house bunnies today. It's interesting. I honestly don't know a ton about it. I really want to read. Like all of them have like a memoir.
Yeah.
And I think celebrity memoirs are like the perfect book to read during like the holiday seasons. Like those are my favorite books to read when you're like at home, you need something to do, reading celebrity memoir books. And so I'm gonna add, I know Holly has like several books.
Does.
So
yeah, and I watched the Amazon Prime or maybe it was HBO Max special, and she's on there and talks about it too. But man, that documentary is so good because it goes to the beginning. Like, there were women on there that were in their 60s or 70s, and they're talking about their time at the Playboy Mansion in Chicago, which I didn't even know that existed either. I mean,
parties went crazy at the mansion. That was like such a thing you wanted, was to like be invited to like a mansion house party. But oh my God, okay thanks, Sam. Love that. I love that Trisha made her way to the podcast. I was waiting for the day. I want to talk about Sarah Hoover. Again, Sarah Hoover is new to me, but she was on the It's Me Tinx podcast this week, Office Hours, and it was called Office Hours with Sarah Hoover, The Motherload, which is her book coming out in January. Basically, Sarah's whole mission is like to not wanting to like perpetrate a cycle of like not being raw and honest about motherhood. She removed like a lot of shame, and like she basically was just like, my goal, is if I can help one person with just like my story and not be embarrassed. It sounds like the book has a lot to do with talking about the experiences of pregnancy and postpartum and things you're just like the internet doesn't talk about, but a lot of more of like what scares me the most about motherhood that I don't feel like is talked about enough is like the risk of like the change in your identity. As much as I would love for this episode to end on like a lighthearted note, I just don't feel like it's going to. It was so interesting. They have like the honest conversation about like your identity, your body, and your relationships changing. Just like how it's like one thing that I've always felt about motherhood, and I know I'm like called to be a mom someday. I don't see it like in like anytime like in the near future. Like it's not something I like really hyper fixate on. But to me, I am like I definitely describe myself as a selfish person in the fact of like I know what I like. I'm like very confident in like who I am and like what I want to do in this life. And you either see there's like two sides of the coin. One, it's the biggest honor and so badass that like our bodies are designed to carry life and that like we can do that. Just something like as like a woman, like identifying as a woman, it's so cool. Nobody else can do this unless you have, the body parts in which we do. But like the flip side of that is how unfair that in society then it means it throws off our identity, our career, our like projections in life, unless you are like really privileged and fortunate to either have the income for a nanny and someone to raise and like bring your child into like society to be like a well-performing person in society. And so it was just like an interesting conversation about just like the journey of finding someone you want to do that with, like having a baby, like how unfair it is to like maybe ruin like a certain time of your life, and like how it's not talked about how like Sarah had her baby and she was like, you're told this story of like you give birth, they put the baby like in your arms and you're supposed to immediately feel something, and she was like, I didn't, and I thought I was like a terrible person for that. She was like, this was a new person I was meeting for the first time and I didn't feel that immediate click.
Wow. Okay.
And it was just a really raw and honest conversation. And so I think I just related to it a lot of like, I talk about that often. I feel like with like my friends and family of just like how it's so unfair. Like, why do I have to give up 9 months of my life of like drinking to give and have a child? The other side is obviously you give that up because you want a child, but then like how unfair is it that like it's going to affect my career, or it's maybe going to throw off the things that I know I like want.
Yeah.
And I just think we need to normalize being able to like say that.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
and so I just recommend everybody listen to it. I'm definitely going to be pre-ordering her book when it comes out, because I just think even at any phase of life you're in, it's a conversation that we should have to either, one, understand like our bodies more, I think, and two, like, even if like motherhood isn't the path for us, I think it would help us like bring less shame to maybe our friends who are in that phase of life,
Yeah.
and like trying to like relate and understand to them more.
Yeah.
So it was so interesting.
I would love to join in, because in the Just Trish podcast, they had a different viewpoint.
Ooh,
And
oh my God.
so-
Okay, let's hear it.
So I will say they didn't touch on the, I guess not negatives, but the kind of cons of what could happen, right? It was funny because, or not funny, but it was very interesting because Tana was talking about, I didn't know that she was interested in adoption.
Tana is, yeah. No, I had no idea.
I had no idea that she had mentioned she's terrified of giving birth, which that, I'm going to be honest, that is a fear of mine too. I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't know what to even expect. No. And so Tana was talking about that, and she talked about how Amari, I believe is her friend. His family is basically she calls it her adopted family. And she said that it was such a beautiful thing that someone could give that to another person. And she would love to give that to someone. And she was even saying like she doesn't know how she would feel about little Tana Mojos running around, which I thought was like such a funny quote. But she talked about how she didn't want to go through the 9 months. She was like, I would be bedridden. And I know she meant that as a joke, but like reality is you're growing a human and you're going to have hormone changes, body changes. I mean, I see people's like feet swell, their hands swell, like all of these things that make things so impractical and so painful. And she was talking about that. And then Holly had said that she had always wanted to be a mother, and that they talk about how in life, you know, it's the journey, not the destination. She felt that she was at her destination when she became a mom. And it was like such a beautiful like viewpoint. And Trisha was talking about how like she loves her kids, and like how the births were different between two kids. She had a C-section her second time around versus the other first time. And I just thought it was interesting because Trisha and Holly were talking about how amazing motherhood was, and a pregnancy and all of these things. And Tana had the opposite of like, I haven't had kids yet. I don't know if I want to give birth, but I do maybe want to adopt. And here's kind of my fears. And it was really respectful and nice how they handled it. It was like, this is my experience and this is how it went, and went really well. But I really liked how vulnerable Tana was, because I don't think people say that very often of like, this is why I'm at the decision that I am. So yeah,
that's beautiful. I love that. For all counts of like all of their like thoughts and journeys and like experiences, I know I'll feel that like when the time is right, that like Holly feels that way, but it's such an individual experience, and it's like the more we talk about it, the more normalized it can be for it being okay for, I feel like, for women to be scared, and for women to at points like not think it's like fair, but also that it is like the most rewarding and like badass thing that only like a woman is able to do. So it's interesting. It was it was a really cool conversation. I think like the book is going to be really cool. And so that's those are my big standout podcasts for the week. Happy birthday week.
Thank you.
We have got exciting things coming up. I'm heading to New York this week, and Sam's going to be meeting me in New York, and we're going to have our freaking little girls trip.
I'm so excited.
Watch out for all of the content on our social medias, because like I doubt we're probably gonna have to like skip a week of podcasting. Like let's be real, that might have to happen. So therefore that means we'll be creating a lot of content on TikTok and Insta. So That's exciting. I'm gonna hop off and I'm gonna edit this and get it out for the people because everybody needs to know our takes.
Such a good podcast this week. I loved your podcast. I loved how diverse this whole thing was. I mean, we're talking about Wicked,
I know.
then we're talking about Brianna Chickenfry, then we're talking about Trisha Paytas, and then motherhood. How crazy is this set of podcasts?
And if that isn't just like our life, I don't know what is.
I
Again,
love
exactly
it.
why we chose to start a podcast because we're in all of these different corners and it's so fun to have a space to talk about them.
I loved it. I love yapping with you today.
Love it. Love
All
yapping
right.
with you always. Okay.
Signing off.
Bye.